How would you define happiness?
It's a great question. First of all, I think it's the absence of fear and anxiety. And when a person lets go of this level of tension, anxiety, fear, then people's natural being comes out. And in that state, the joy of being alive becomes, I think, part of people's vitality, the excitement of watching a little child, of seeing a sunset, of watching a flower, of smelling a flower. All of those become part of the tapestry of being alive. So I think joy and happiness, to me, are really about living fully in the present instead of feeling bad about the past or worrying about the future, really being alive here now.
I'm a colossally anxious being. If you took my anxiety away, there'd just be a little pile of dust on the floor, and it would be tiny little nothing. Like I am a bundle of anxiety, and which is something that I'm trying to address. So I know it's a big question. For a person who is predominantly built from anxiety, what's the first step towards addressing that?
So first of all, the fact that you think of yourself as a bundle of anxiety and that you would be nothing but this little pile of dust if you didn't have it, I think that is a fear that a lot of people have, that their anxiety holds them together. And if they didn't have the stress and the turmoil, what would they have? But I think what happens when people are able to quiet their nervous system and let go of some of that anxiety, then it's almost like the beauty of who you are can shine through. So a way to get to that is actually to start beginning to spend moments of quietness inside yourself, where you start actually learning how to manage your mind. So I think of our brain as like a really fancy sports car, like a Lamborghini, and we don't get a driving manual, we don't learn how to drive it, and so people are driving off the cliff all the time. But if you learn how to keep your Lamborghini on the road so that you can go around curves, then you can be happy. So the translation of that really is if you can learn to get your mind to quiet itself down and be in the present and just notice how you're breathing, notice how your body feels the sensations, notice a flower, you stop thinking about the past or the future. And that, in a moment, your anxiety will be gone and you'll find like, oh, this is really lovely.
I guess that's something, I mean, it sounds easy, but it isn't, right? I think struggle to, I think if your brain is quite busy and your mind's quite busy and your reaction to if you're sensitive to the world in maybe in a way that is distracting and consuming is probably a better phrase, that those moments of calmness are difficult to achieve. So have you got any tips on techniques of how to sort of do that for somebody who's generally quite fractious?
So when you said it isn't easy, and I said right away, it's not. It actually is after you get the hang of it. Yeah. So the beginning of making the shift from that mind that is racing, and it's often racing with self-put-down, with self-critical kind of comments, with anxiety and worry about what's going to happen, what did happen, how to rewrite history, how to plan for the worst possible situation, all those kinds of things as they're going around. Or did that person like me? How did I sound? Did I sound like a dork? I mean, all the things that go through our mind. When you even have a moment where that quiets down and you both feel very alive and also quiet at the same time, it's an amazing feeling. You felt it? You felt it?
Well, rarely.
Okay, but you have felt it.
Yeah.
So have you experienced it enough that you could describe what your body feels like?
Well, I guess I can describe. Well, quiet would be a good word, because I think my anxiety is a physical sensation, and it's like a physical noise.
Yeah.
And it's one of the ways I describe it would be like it's a little bit like being electrocuted, and somebody's turning the dial up often, and and in various social situations the dial might get turned up higher in there's certain triggers will turn that dial up, and I'll be whereas in moments of calm it just gets switched off.
Okay.
And so there's no that physical and emotional angst or pain, if you want to call it that, disappears, and it's kind of blissful, really.
Right, it is blissful. Okay. So when you asked how would I do it, any tips, each person is different because you live in your body and you experience the world differently.
Yeah.
So for you, based on what you just said, I would start with you actually turning up the dial and giving yourself an experience where you're sitting alone, where you know you're not going to have distractions. You just have your mind, which is a big enough distraction, and you actually begin to create the thoughts that make you get more anxious, and you turn it up just like one notch, not full throttle, and then you turn it back down. And you start finding out, what do you need to turn it up and to turn it down? So does it have to do with your body in a kinesthetic way? Like if you start rubbing your legs, does that help you quiet down? Or if you start moving your hands, does that get you built up? So what is it? Is it a physical thing? Is it an idea? Is it thinking about a particular person that triggers you? So it's you figuring out and then getting a handle on how do you rev yourself up and how do you rev yourself down.
Yeah.
And so for each person it's different. So some people really focus on ideas more. You're very kinesthetic. You're very much in your body. The way you started describing it was all about physical.
Yeah.
So that would be the way for you to go in to, okay, how do I start from that place of being a little bit revved and now calm myself down? So a great way to get yourself from that state that you're in at a low level to even a calmer level is just to do relaxation in your body. So years ago, I think in the 50s, a guy named Benson created something called the relaxation response. And what he found was that when you make each muscle has a set. There's an agonist and an antagonist muscle. So when there's a muscle, like when you flex one muscle, the other muscle goes on extension. So if you hold both of them tight, really rigid, and you're so rigid that you're shaking, and then you relax, you get more relaxation in both muscles than you do if you just try to relax. So if you were to do something like that, you got your body really, really tense, and then you relaxed it, and you experienced what that relaxation is, you'll find that as you relax your body, your mind relaxes. So if you're paying a lot of attention to what it feels like in your body to hold yourself really tight, and then what the sensations are as you relax, you will be one place, which is paying attention to your body. And you'll find that the anxiety just goes away for a second.
Yeah. Because I want to do things, I'm ambitious, and I want to be, I want to live my life, and anxiety can be incredibly inhibiting. So I find myself at the moment, putting myself in innumerable situations that are real stress triggers for me, and so the dial's up a lot at the moment. In moments of high stress,
yeah.
I mean, they might not be in real terms high stress, but
yeah.
but for me, my peculiar brain, the high stress, in moments of high stress, as well as kind of that kind of what you just described, are there other things that I can put into practice to get me through a specific kind of, stop me having a panic attack, essentially,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little story about a woman who I worked with years ago in therapy,
yeah.
who started having panic attacks, and she had never had them before, but she started having them. And as I worked with her, what the image that we started working with was first of all, the idea that we started working with was developing her capacity to handle energy.
Yeah.
So when she started feeling anxious, she started imagining that she could just expand, so that the energy that was getting moved around in her body had a place to go, so that she was like a giant balloon that could just expand. And then she could let it also relax, like it was a water balloon, kind of letting go. But the idea of expanding into the anxiety was totally novel idea to her, instead of trying to get rid of the anxiety. So first of all, there's something called ironic processes. If you try to get rid of the anxiety, it will get stronger. You know that. Okay. But if you say, okay, it's okay, anxiety, be here. I'm going to grow myself big enough that I can handle you. And breathe into it and just let your body hold that tension. So my guess is that you have sex. So when a person is getting aroused, before they have an orgasm, the tension inside the body is building. The more you allow yourself to build the capacity to hold energy, the better your orgasms will be. So as you learn to manage your anxiety, you'll actually have better sex.
Well, sex is one of the few things that relieves anxiety for me, so, you know.
But
maybe more sex is the answer.
Why did you look at me when you said that?
I don't know, Dave.
I'm here in a professional capacity for the 100th time. Okay, I'm gone. I'm not here anymore.
He's not there. Told you that charisma was strong.
You see, but when you're having sex, you're in the moment. And when you stop thinking about performance anxiety and you're actually present, you're feeling your body, you're feeling the other person, you're connecting with them on a deep level. And in that experience, you're very much in the here and now. You're not, when you're thinking about, what if I come too soon, all that, then you actually don't have that blissful, wonderful experience, right?
Yeah.
So it is a great idea to take the same things that you're doing in sex and apply them to life. So what you're doing in sex...
Not all of them, surely.
But at least one of the things you're doing is you're allowing your whole capacity for building energy to be there. You're not trying to cut it off.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay,
that's something I can understand and relate to.
Now I'll tell you one more thing.
Yeah.
So the whole issue of anxiety in social situations is actually quite normal.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It's not pathological. It's part of the way our brains work. It starts with stranger anxiety when kids are, 6 months old, and it's part of the way we're hardwired. So we have the in group, which are the people who are in our clan, and then everybody else is a stranger. And so the experience of thinking, okay, are they going to be friend or foe? Are they going to include me or not? Are they going to like me or not? All of that is part of the way our brains are actually hardwired. So the anxiety that comes up when you're facing a new situation like that, or am I going to do this competently? It can be anything about, are people going to think I add value? Do they want me here? All those kinds of questions are natural, normal questions. So one of the ways you can work with yourself is, as you start noticing those things, if you say to yourself, there's nothing wrong with me, this is just part of being a human being. I'm having stranger anxiety or performance anxiety. It's okay. Breathe into it. This too shall pass. And it will help you just say, I'm okay the way I am.
Yeah, I guess checking in those moments is something that's obviously required, but it's difficult to do. It's difficult to do. I think most of the time I perceive myself to be quite a self-aware person, but I'm at my least self-aware and self-observant, I guess, when I'm anxious. So the higher my anxiety is, the less capable I am of remembering to check in on myself and say, look, this is okay, this is all fine, and rationalize and get some kind of genuine perspective.
Right.
So I guess, have you got any tips on kind of how a person might remind themselves during a moment of minor crisis that just have a little word with themselves.
Okay.
It's all fine.
All right. So actually the first thing to do is to become more aware of the early signs of your anxiety. So if you wait until you're highly anxious, it's harder to deal with it than if you notice the flutters, or your stomach fluttering, or your shoulders getting tense, or your jaws getting tense, whatever it is that you notice happens to you. Start paying attention to what are the first signals of your anxiety. And when you notice that signal, the moment you notice it, take a deep breath, relax your body, your brain will relax, and that's the place to begin. It's to notice the little teeny things that start going, oh, I'm starting to feel anxious, at level 1, not at level 9. The reason that's so important is that when you wait until a high level of anxiety, the hormones that start coursing through your body that are stress hormones take at least 20 minutes to dissipate. But if you catch it really soon, where the hormones haven't started really just coursing, so cortisol isn't flooding your brain, and norepinephrine, all that stuff isn't flooded yet, then you can change easily, because your brain can change quickly, much faster than your body.
Do you think that there are generic triggers for people to be happy? Do you think there are universal triggers for happiness?
It's interesting. A trigger for happiness. I don't know that I would call it a trigger for happiness, but I think what's universal is when people are not in that anxious state, that the natural happiness of being alive comes, which is why working on how do I bring out my natural state. So rather than try to stop the anxiety, how do I bring out my natural state? So what is it that for you or for somebody else allows them to feel good, to be in their, quote, happy place, to be in their special place? So all the research in neuroscience shows that our brain has inertia. So if you get up and you're in a bad state, in a bad way, it's harder for you to get into a good feeling state. Whereas if you wake up in a good feeling state, it's harder to get in a bad feeling state. So with that idea in mind, to say, okay, I am going to do things that help me feel good, then it's not like force, but it's conscious choice about what you're going to focus your mind and your energy on. So for instance, for myself, I've had the experience, it was profound for me, where I would wake up one day and I would feel overwhelmed by the number of things that I had on my plate. And I would walk into my office and I would just be, oh my God, I don't know what to do first. And I would hardly get anything done and I would feel miserable. And then other days I would get up and I would have the exact same amount of work to do, if not more, go into my office and say, okay, I'm just going to start doing one little thing at a time, and I know soon I'll feel better. And I learned from that was a way to take care of myself. So when I started feeling that overwhelmed feeling, immediately I would say, okay, I know that if I just start making a list and ticking off the smaller things, then I'll feel good and it'll be easier for me to get in a good mood and get more productive. And so that, I don't think of that as will force in that kind of coercive way, but it is definitely using my will to say, I'm going to choose behavior patterns and attitude patterns that help me to feel good.
So there's some kind of validity to the fake it till you make it kind of philosophy, that kind of if you put yourself in positions that normally make you feel positive, then they may have an effect on your mood.
They will have an effect on your mood.
Yeah.
So the fake it till you make it, there is research that shows that it's true. So people who are depressed, who they had smile at themselves in a mirror, even if it was a fake smile, they started feeling better than the people who looked at themselves in a mirror and didn't smile. So there's amazing research that shows that it starts working, and part of the way it works is that the muscles that make us smile, all the smile muscles, actually have a direct link to the brain to tell it to release certain hormones and brain neurotransmitters. So there is something to it. I tend to find that I'm somebody who says, work on all different levels. Do that. Do also things that really help you believe in yourself. So most people have incredible negative dialogues going on in their brains that keep them stuck, feeling horrible, and that is antithetical to feeling joy, happy, yeah. So I help people learn how to change that inner dialogue so that they have what I call the angel voice that really wants to do good by them and take care of them and help them along. So most of us don't have very well-developed angel voices, but we have very well-developed inner critics and put down. And so that's another way. I say work that way. And then do it behaviorally. Do little teeny things that help you feel good. Or if you like imagery, imagine being in a place where you feel like you're on purpose, where you're in flow. I have beautiful pictures of tulips that I took when I was in Amsterdam. And they are so gorgeous. I just can look at them and I feel good because I love flowers. If I'm feeling terrible, do they help me feel good? Not immediately. But if I go, okay, I'm just going to quiet myself down and look at these flowers and look at the beauty and enjoy them, enjoy the beauty of them, it helps me get out of my freaked out state and into more a sense of peace and enjoyment and love.
So do you think that physical and social environment has a profound effect on happiness then?
It can have an effect. It doesn't have to. So I think that it does, because as human beings we are in a very unconscious way taking in cues from our environment. So there's all this research that shows how our brains are affected completely outside our conscious awareness. So this one that I think was amazing, they had Afro-American men who all had the same aptitude in math, and they gave one group of them a form to fill out before they took the test, where they had to fill out that they were Afro-American males. The other group did not have that one question. The group that had that question scored 17% lower, just with that one question. So their brains get primed to think and are suggestible. And so they think, oh, Afro-American males aren't supposed to be so good in math, so their brains don't work as well. Right? So there are so many examples of this. So yes, I think our environment has a profound effect.
Yeah.
It's not the excuse. So you can be anywhere. I mean, look at Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning. He talks about people in concentration camps still having that joy and being able to give to other people and carry this lightness of being.
What can be done practically then to improve our day-to-day lives, like generally, not just me, not just a little stress monkey like myself, but like just the general populace? If you could kind of say, maybe this is a bit reductive, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you could sort of say one thing that would enhance people's levels of happiness generally across the board, what would that be? I know that's tricky and possibly too reductive.
No, I'll be reductionistic. It's to breathe more. It's to take moments during your day to just stop, take a long deep breath, let it go, have a pause. So just stop everything around you, have a moment of quiet inside, even just one moment. And the more you do it and your being goes, oh, this feels really good, the more you're going to want to do it. And so that will build on itself. And you can do that anywhere, except for when you're driving. But you can do it at red lights or at stop signs.
I guess your speciality is working with people and working with relationships. And I think, given, due to my upbringing and the peculiarities of that and the difficulties of that, that my biggest fears and my biggest stresses are all related to other people. You know, hell is other people, and I mean, I guess all the greatest things in life. I'm a great believer that the best part of our existence lies within the relationships we have. But unfortunately, due to experience and due to the consequences of those experiences, I've struggled with that hugely.
Just give me an example of what happened in your early background that leads you to be so untrusting or fearful of people.
Okay, so I'll give you a bit of personal history. I was always a strange little kid, and I was I was shy, terribly shy child. If anybody ever knocked on the door, I'd run and hide under the bed, and stay there until they left. And I was a little bit strange, but my environment was very aggressive, and I was quite sensitive. Unfortunately, due to various situations, the people that raised me didn't stick around. My dad went first, then my mum lived with my gran for a while, and then so I wasn't really parented properly. So I kind of detached myself in that sense. I remember having the thought process of okay, people don't stick around, so it's just you have to sort of. It didn't make me any less loving. It just made me. See that as that would always be finite and ephemeral, and so you can't really rely on anybody, and so you can't really invest too much in anybody. I think that's had a profound effect in later life. I'm only just discovering this stuff now. And then as a sort of an older child and teen, things got incredibly violent, and I think the sort of the trauma of that extreme violence and aggression made me quite jaded about people. Well, not so jaded that as an adult I'm not devoid of the capacity to love or devoid of the capacity to empathize. I think I'm hardwired to be cautious, and I struggle to communicate with people, and I struggle to be emotionally honest with people to an extent that I think it has a negative effect on my relationships, because I'm very quick to close down, very quick to bundle up like a hedgehog, like so there's kind of that, all of those things that as an adult I'm trying to address are I guess they're quite huge, really, and there's no kind of band-aid for that,
but there's not a band-aid, but there is a cure.
Okay,
so
well, that's good
better
news.
than a band-aid. Yeah,
it's good to hear.
So the survival strategies that you developed helped you manage your life. So you said that it was violent even early. So of course you would run under the bed and hide, because when somebody came in, who knew what kind of person that would be? So you already were living in an environment that was so traumatic for a little child. Because a little child, you don't have the skills to deal with violence. You just don't. So to hide was it was a smart little boy. It wasn't just a shy little boy. It was a smart little boy who said, I'm going where it's safe. So instead of criticizing and shaming and blaming yourself for hiding, it's really like pat yourself on the back and go, good job, you took care of yourself and you protected yourself. What happens is we take that we take that behavior out from our family of origin, and we forget what happened that we developed it. So the idea of you hiding changed as you got older to, I'm just going to disengage. So suddenly there wasn't a person behind your eyes. You couldn't go hide under the bed, but whoops, you weren't there.
Yeah, very much so.
All right, so that's really doing the same survival strategy, using the same strategy that you used when you were little. When you get the awareness that, oh, I'm doing what I learned to do as a little child in my family of origin, and I'm doing it now with this new person who I've never met. So, good job, amygdala. Good job. You're taking care of me, making sure I'm alive. This person, the likelihood is this person isn't like those people who were so mean to me when I was a child or so violent with each other. If I find that they are, I can quickly shut down. But I'm going to experiment with giving this new person a little bit of space and find out, can I trust them? Can I get a little bit closer to them than I normally do and see if anything good or bad happens? So it's giving yourself teeny weeny little steps, not big giant steps, little teeny ones, and then finding, okay, I lived through that. That was okay. Nothing terrible happened. I'm still here. And then going, okay, I'm going to do it again with another person. I'm going to be a little bit more open and find out what happens, or a little bit more optimistic, or a little bit more trusting, or something like that. And doing it as an experiment.
Yeah, I think I do manage that. I manage that. I think that I am discovering sort of walls and barriers within me emotionally. I mean, I guess it's other people that discover those that I wasn't really aware of, you know, and kind of it's not good to get to sort of to discover them at my age, you know. I guess but better addressed now than never.
Hey, you don't look that old, so you're still pretty young. My mother started doing a lot of work on herself when she was in her 40s. She went back and got her master's of social work, and she started working with Virginia Satir. And she had life-changing experiences that in her 40s, she realized that she was acting just like her mother and like she had learned in her family of origin. And she really decided to let go of her mother. And it wasn't that she became a different person, but the essence of who she really is started coming out more. And a lot of the rules that she'd gotten from my grandmother and the shoulds dropped away. So it isn't that you're going to be a different person, it's that the natural you will just come out more.
What motivated you to study this stuff and become kind of...
My very first memory of doing what I do was when I was 4 years old. So my parents usually, they bickered, but this was a bigger argument than just a bicker. And I just remember my mother ended up in the bedroom on the bed crying. And I went into the room as a little 4-year-old and I said, "Mommy, what's wrong?" I have no recollection of what she said. Then I went and I found my daddy. And I said, "Daddy, you have to go talk to Mommy to work it out." So at 4 years old, I knew that the only way through was to talk. And to talk in a way that you could work things out.
Have you got a happiest memory?
I got stopped in the street when I was pregnant. People said they had never seen such a happy pregnant woman. I was just like, I was glowing, you know. But I also have this experience of complete happiness when I'm alone, when I'm dancing, when I'm watching the sunset, when I listen to the birds, when I hear the frogs. I have frogs that live there, and when they start croaking, I am so happy. I have no idea why the frogs make me so happy, but I love hearing them croak. I mean, it's a silly thing, but I just totally love hearing them talk to each other.
Well, it's not silly, is it? Though I think training yourself maybe is the wrong phrase, but you know, allowing yourself to enjoy the minutiae is the key to happiness, isn't it? Surely the key to that kind of sustained well-being that we all chase. And I think not being distracted and being present and noticing those things and allowing yourself to enjoy them, I think is a great. I don't want to sound too trite or cheesy, but that's kind of a great gift. I'd like to be the kind of person that is able to do. Well, I'm working on it. You know?
It's
this conversation's
practice.
helping. Yeah. This question might lack a bit of nuance, but if you had a friend who was struggling with depression, what would you say or do to support them?
Well, again, it would depend on the person, and I think the first place I would start is, how can I support you? So I would find out what that person already knew about what they wanted. So asking the question of, how can I would like to be here for you, how can I be here for you? what would help you remember that I love you and that other people love you? How can I do that for you?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't presume that I would know what you would want or what somebody else would want.
Yeah.
And if somebody was so depressed that they couldn't even articulate it, then I would start saying, well, would it feel good for you if I come and sit next to you and put my arm around you? Or would it be good to just look at my eyes and, you know, make eye contact, or let me hold you? So I would start asking if the person was so far gone.
That was a brilliant conversation. Thank you so much for talking to us.
It's my total pleasure. This is absolutely divine.